The phone rang once, then silence for the Sauter family. This was the last contact they would ever have with their children. December 24th, 1945, Fayetteville, West Virginia. The hours leading up to Christmas Day were meant to be filled with warmth and anticipation. Instead, they descended into a mystery that, nearly 80 years later, remains unsolved. What happened to the 5 Sauter children? The official report says they died in a house fire, but the closer you look, the more the official story begins to unravel. There were no remains, not a single bone fragment. How can 5 children vanish from a fire that supposedly burned hot enough to cremate them, yet left books and furniture surprisingly intact? This isn't a ghost story. This is a story of missing evidence, strange sightings, and a family's unending search for the truth. Fayetteville in the 1940s was a small, working-class town dominated by the coal industry. George Sauter, an Italian immigrant, had built a successful trucking business. He and his wife, Jenny, were raising 9 of their 10 children in a large, 2-story wooden house just outside of town. George was known for being outspoken, particularly in his criticism of Benito Mussolini's fascist regime in Italy, which sometimes created friction within the local Italian-American community. On that Christmas Eve, the older children, Marion, Maurice, Martha, Louis, and Jenny, convinced their mother to let them stay up late to play with their new toys. Their parents and younger siblings went to bed around 10 p.m., just after midnight. Jenny was awakened by the phone ringing. It was a wrong number. A woman with a strange laugh was on the line, asking for someone Jenny didn't know. Heading back to bed, Jenny noticed the lights were still on and the front door was unlocked, which was unusual. She assumed the older kids had forgotten. An hour later, around 1 in the morning, she was woken again, this time by the smell of smoke. The house was on fire. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children, John, George Jr., Mary Ann, and Sylvia, managed to escape the inferno. But the 5 older children, who were sleeping in the attic, were trapped. Panic set in. George smashed a window to re-enter the house but was blocked by a wall of flames. He ran to get his ladder, which he always kept propped against the side of the house. It was gone. He then tried to drive one of his work trucks up to the attic window to use as a makeshift platform, but neither of his trucks would start, despite working perfectly the day before. Frantic neighbors called the fire department, but the call went unanswered. The fire chief, F.J. Morris, couldn't be reached. A passerby saw the blaze and drove into town to raise the alarm in person. By the time the fire department finally arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 hours after the fire started, the Sauter home was nothing but a smoking pile of ash and rubble. The 5 children were gone. The official investigation began and concluded with unnerving speed. The cause of the fire was ruled as faulty wiring, and death certificates for the 5 missing children were issued within days. But George and Jenny Sauter refused to accept it. They knew the house wiring had recently been checked and declared safe by the power company. More disturbing was the complete lack of human remains. The fire chief claimed the blaze was hot enough to completely incinerate the bodies, but Jenny, who had worked in a crematorium, knew this was impossible. A typical house fire doesn't reach the temperatures required for full cremation, which takes hours at over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Furthermore, household appliances and parts of the tin roof were found in the debris, warped but recognizable. How could metal survive, but not bone? The family began their own investigation. They hired a private detective. They questioned the strange phone call. They learned a man had been seen stealing a block and tackle from their property a few weeks before the fire, and another witness claimed to have seen someone watching the children from the highway. The inconsistencies piled up. A bus driver came forward, claiming she saw the children peering from a passing car while the fire was still burning. A woman at a tourist stop between Fayetteville and Charleston reported seeing the children with 2 men and a woman of Italian extraction. She said they had breakfast at her stop early Christmas morning. A hotel worker in Charleston also claimed to have seen the children a week later, saying,